Hello everyone, Spin Spun Hunts here again, and with today's video I'm going to talk about the next complex system, which is armor, weapon crafting, and decorations. Yesterday I put out a video. You could see that I talked about item gathering, selecting and making quests, understanding high rank consumables, and traps and things like that. Today I'll be focusing on the creating aspect and the materials and everything that's associated with that. So first thing I'm going to talk about is when you go here to the equipment menu in your tent, you'll see the change equipment tab, view sell equipment. You see your decorations and kind of customize your bow gun. So the first thing I'm going to recommend doing before you make or craft anything is to take your menu here, your loadouts, and save your current loadout. That way you're free to make anything you want. You can just come back here, you can use your equipment loadout, and you'll be right back to where you were with the same decorations and everything. So you'll kind of see here what I've chosen for my greatsword build, at least for my main anyway. Highly surrounding dragon element attack, and if you look through the screen, you can see there's a variety of skills, and then some information about attack, affinity, and elements and all of that on the right hand side. I'm not going to go too much into that just yet. I'll show as I'm crafting a new build. And you can see some of the other ones that I've set up here. A couple secondary greatsword builds, and one that I was just working on yesterday, which is Insect Glaive. Here you have the option to change these weapon pieces out by selecting anything in your menu, as well as loading your decorations into the applicable slots that you'll have with various types of gear. Now, if you're far enough along through, you've completed the story, I'm assuming that you're starting to create your own builds, you're having some fun with it, you're playing around with different skills, and you've advanced enough to start finding better and cooler decorations. So I'm going to leave the tent here for a minute, and just for fun, I've been wanting to work on a hammer build, so I'm just going to make a hammer build right now. As you can see, you just go over to Gemma, or the smithy at any of the main camps, and you can start your crafting there. So the crafting menu is a little bit different here. You have the two different tabs where you can change your equipment. You can, same as the tent options before, and here you can forge your new weapons, armor, or you can upgrade your armor from the item box. And you can also update your wish list, talismans, and then Artian weapons, and a few other options down there like your palico equipment. So the one I'm going to go to first is I'm going to talk about just forging a new weapon. So in this instance, I want to make a hammer. So I go here, it shows a little tutorial on the bottom of the screen, kind of the move sets and what you can expect from each individual weapon. So you'll see these trees, as they're called. So the weapons tree, the forge list is what you have available, in a list form. And then if you have a hammer already, you can upgrade it on the very last tab. Now in this instance, I don't really have anything in particular, but I'm going to go with something a little more, kind of like an element. I was thinking about using something like Blast, just to try something different and have a bit of fun. So you can look at this weapon here. I'm going down the tree and I'm kind of finding what's the end state weapon that I want. Now you might find that some of these are locked for you, and that's based on completion or hunter rank, many of the different things like that. So whatever's available to you will have a precursor that you'll need to open up and to create. So if I wanted to create something down the Arkveld tree, I have to go kill a Chatacabra, gather a scale. Now I'll be able to craft this one, which will allow me to craft this one here, which will unlock, the Arkveld one that I'm seeking out. And you can just follow it along the tree. It's better to look at upcoming weapons and things like that you might have an idea of what kind of materials you're going to be needing before going into each individual hunt, instead of hunting a monster, collecting materials, and then seeing what you can craft. It's always a good idea to kind of have an idea of what you want to be doing. So you can see paralysis, ice, this one's a fire build, fire element. And then if you go farther down, you'll see some different options here. If there isn't something that you actually want, a lot of these, I don't think there's an actual blast one. Sleep is also kind of cool. What you can do in this case is you can actually create an Artian weapon later in the game, which are made from specific materials from high-end end game type tempered monsters, such as Apexes, Arkveld, or Gormagala. So in this instance, I'm actually going to be making an Artian weapon. So I go down here, same thing. I go to the hammer, and here's kind of how these options work. You use three of these materials, and it'll create that weapon for you. And depending on the affixes and everything else, it'll depend on what you actually get out of it. So like I said, I wanted something with a little bit of blast. So I would go down here. I find my first one. It's a disc with blast damage, and there's affinity and attack. So how I'm going to do this is I'm actually going to want to take a little bit of affinity and a little bit of attack. So this one has attack of fusion. You can see the numbers change on the right. By putting this, it's going to increase my affinity, or if I do this, it's going to just increase my raw damage. No real right way to do it. You can want, different builds require different things, and you can always look up builds online from, specific weapons. You might see someone with a gun lance build or a greatsword build. There's lots of stuff out there that'll help guide this experience for you. But just so you're seeing the menus and how that works, you can look at this and see the amount of slots that are available to this weapon that I'm going to create. Like I said, the attack, the affinity, and then the element that will get brought in. So going to blast, in this case, I'm just going to keep an attack of fusion and an affinity of fusion with the blast damage. So how this part works is that if you have two elements of the same type, then the weapon will result in that element. If you have all three that are different, you don't have a pair, then you'll have no elemental condition, and it'll just be raw damage. So if I were to switch this, for example, from blast to fire, I haven't achieved two of the three yet, it's going to revert back to a raw damage. And that goes for this too. So at the end here, if I were to put, you see, fire or whatever I choose, it's still going to remain blast. Or, I can use the third one, and it's going to be also, it'll up the amount of blast attack on the weapon. So it's always good to go with three of them if that's going to be your element as well. This one has affinity of fusion again. I have an attack of fusion one down here. So I'm going to use that because it's going to increase my blast damage, keep me at 10% affinity, and then I'll have the attack as well. So that's the weapon that I'm going to choose. So now I've created this, I'm going to equip it as my primary weapon. I could always make a secondary weapon after, likely the one that I would make out of the hammer tree itself. By going back to the menu here, and then selecting something down the tree. I could make an elemental ice one. So I have this in my inventory, so what I'll do is I'll just make an ice affinity weapon from the Jindahad tree, but just by following this guideline here. So I already have the basic hammer you start with one of every game, one of every weapon in the game. I can upgrade it here with iron ore, and then as you can see, there's always a little cinematic. Gemma will create the weapon for you, and then I'll equip this one as my secondary weapon. Now I've unlocked this level tier for ores, and I know I'm going to have to go down this tree in order to make that Jindahad weapon. I'll just keep it in line with my secondaries.
Ready to get to work?
And I ran out here. I need a Fukium ore in order to make this one so that I can unlock this tree, and then I'll be able to create the Jindahad one. But you get the idea. I'll eventually make my way down the tree, and then I'll be able to craft this ice element weapon, which will be, fun. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is forging and upgrading armor. So in this instance, I have all of these different armor sets that I can choose from, again, depending on how far you've reached in your hunter rank journey and where you are in terms of optional quests. As I've unlocked everything, you can see that I have all of the Guardian sets for Arkveld, as well as some additional sets here. And, if I go up, I have Gormagala, which is a rank rarity 7 gear. But each one has its own tier. So the higher tier, the more armor value it's going to have, maybe some resistances and stuff like that. But when you're crafting a set, you really want to pay attention to the equipment skills. Now that you're a little bit farther into high rank, these skills will start to matter to your independent build. And as I mentioned before, you can look at these types of builds online and you'll be able to find something that suits you. So Arkveld in general, this one has weakness exploit, elemental absorption. The other ones have, weakness exploit and flare and all these other things. But what I want for hammer is something a little more on the side of part breaker and resentment and kind of these tankier kind of skills where I'm going to be in the fight. Maximum might is a great one. So I'm probably going to be using something out of the raid out tree. So you look at these ones here, and the difference between the beta set and the alpha set is this one's going to have 2 sockets, 1 socket, and 1 socket, whereas this one only has 2 singular level 1 sockets. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong tree there. So this one has level 2 maximum might, level 1 stamina surge, but less sockets, whereas this one has more socket value, but you lose a little bit of the skills. So all in all, for this instance, I'm just going to use this one because it has level 2 maximum might already, and that's what I want for this specific build. And as you can see, I'm wearing a layered armor set, so it's not going to change the look of that right now. But I'm currently equipped with this, and now that's going to be the chest piece that I use. These ones are also great. Stun resistance, Latin power. These are also good for my build. So I'm going to take one of these, but this time I'm going to take one with a level 3 socket. Like this one here. So I'll take this one, I apply that setting, and now I actually achieved a pair in the same set, so I'll unlock the set bonus for Thunderous Roar. And as you so forth and so forth, I would progress with my armor sets and choosing those ones that suit my individual builds with the skills that I need, and then I can upgrade them farther down in the box here by going, for example, to that chest piece that I just created, which, this one here, and now I can use all these armor spheres that I've been collecting to upgrade that accordingly to the maximum level. So you can see here, by using 12 of these materials, I can use it to go to level 5 out of 7, and then go to the next one if I wanted to max it to the maximum level. I'm not going to do that at this moment because I'm saving those for another one of my builds. But then here you are, again, you have your wish list, and then that you can wish list items and weapons so that when you're on the hunt and you're collecting materials, it will tell you that you've checked off that criteria to make that weapon, so it'll just let you know that, hey, you're getting close to being able to craft it. We talked about forging Artian weapons, so the next thing I really want to talk about is talismans. So talismans are important. You can only wear one of them, but you can create them based on their skills, and then upgrade them the same as you would a weapon or anything else like that. Again, you want to pick a skill that's really useful for your individual class, and then you can just trade them out as you go. Generally for something like hammer, I may use earplugs or something like that, but just so you can kind of get the idea. For one of the ones for insect glaive that I'm working on is part breaker, and you can see here I need one specific item and able to be able to create that one and then upgrade it accordingly. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about, it could go into forging palico equipment, but it's the same as you would with your own weapons. You select whatever you want for your palico, and you create it. That'll increase its damage, the type of damage that it does and things like that. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was loading in decorations. So generally, the higher level the hunt, the higher level decorations that you'll unlock. There's level 1, 2, and 3. So these level 3s, which is nice about this custom weapon that I made, is that it actually is the only weapons that have 3 level 3 gem sockets. So in this instance, I can fill it with some of these later stage items that I've found. Attack 3 being kind of a rarer item to get because it gives you attack 3 boost and so forth. There's also ones that are very specific to each individual class, and there's so many things that you can do that will increase it. So something like this I will use because I'm using a blast build. You'll see me using blast jewel, and then there's a couple other skills that are really good for hammer mains, and something like this. That increases. I think slugger is another one. Focus, anything that's going to increase your charge time and things like that. I'm not going to focus again too much on this. I haven't really played hammer too much in the other series as a great sword and gun lance main, but I am experimenting with it. So as you can kind of see, you would pick these weapons, or sorry, these decorations that will suit your individual build again.
Now that's a good choice.
Now the last thing I was going to say is that now that I've hypothetically completed this build, now I can go back to my loadouts, and then I would register this one as you know, my hammer build now. So you just go like that, you register it, you rename it accordingly. So for this one, I'll just put, you know, hammer. And then if I was making multiple builds, I would say hammer blast, or like as you can see above. And then that way this is registered if I ever want to switch back to it and continue working on that build. And they give you a lot of pages. You know, you can have just basically infinite amounts of build slots that you want in order to play around and just have as much fun as you can. You can change between hunts if monsters have a certain elemental weakness or things like that as you've unlocked more and more equipment, skills, and all that kind of stuff. So again, the last thing I was going to talk about is your equipment appearance and loadouts. So this one actually trumps the other one. You have loadouts the same way that you do with your items or you do with your armor sets. You can change your layered settings to just include all of that so that you don't have to keep changing that back and forth as well. So as you can see here, you go through your layered settings of whatever weapons or armor you've unlocked before, and then you'll be able to choose them, as well as some special sets that come from event quests or, you know, online purchases through PlayStation, deluxe editions, and things like that. You can see the Guild Knight set is one of the ones that came with the deluxe package, so I'm able to switch that as I please. And then if I wanted to, I can always register that as another loadout and then easily be able to switch back and forth between the layered settings that I want. So that's it for the beginner tips video today on armor sets, weapon crafting, and decorations. I hope you learned something from it, and don't get too lost in it all. You know, it's a lot of fun creating builds and playing around with different weapons, and I really feel like Monster Hunter Wilds streamlined that process to be a lot simpler and a lot easier to play around with different things. So don't be afraid to do so. Enjoy it, and happy hunting.